In Star Wars Legends continuity, Emperor Palpatine's rule of one represented the culmination of the Sith's ambition, absolute power concentrated in a single individual. It diverged sharply from the rule of two established by Darth Bane, replacing a master-apprentice dynamic with the absolute supremacy of one Sith Lord who would rule the galaxy unchallenged. Palpatine's doctrine was not only a statement of his unparalleled dominance but also a reinterpretation of Sith philosophy, one that sought to permanently cement the Sith's control over the galaxy through tyranny, manipulation, and the eradication of rivals. The rule of one emerged as the natural evolution of Darth Sidious's ambition. As Darth Bane had established the rule of two millennia earlier, the Sith had survived by operating in secrecy, concentrating power in two individuals, master and apprentice, until the time was ripe to overthrow the Jedi and seize control of the galaxy. However, Darth Sidious, having succeeded in destroying the Jedi Order and usurping control of the galaxy, viewed the rule of two as obsolete. With the Sith Ascendant and himself as the Galactic Emperor, Sidious sought to consolidate all Sith power into himself. In his view, the galaxy no longer required a line of Sith Lords vying for supremacy through betrayal and succession. Instead, the Sith would be embodied in one being, himself. The rule of one was therefore not a formal doctrine shared with other Sith. It was Palpatine's personal philosophy, shaped by his belief in his own superiority. Unlike Darth Bane, who envisioned the Sith as an enduring lineage of masters and apprentices, Palpatine saw himself as the end of that lineage, the ultimate Sith Lord who had achieved the culmination of millennia of Sith scheming. Under the rule of one, Emperor Palpatine positioned himself as the sole arbiter of power in the galaxy. Unlike the rule of two, where the apprentice was expected to overthrow the master, Palpatine designed his empire to prevent any meaningful challenge to his rule. His vision was one of eternal domination, where the galaxy would serve as an extension of his will, and no Sith, or Jedi, could rise to threaten him. Palpatine's rule of one was predicated on the annihilation of all threats, including both the Jedi and rival Sith. While the rule of two relied on an apprentice to perpetuate the Sith line, Palpatine manipulated his apprentices, such as Darth Maul, Count Dooku, and Darth Vader, to serve his immediate goals rather than groom them as legitimate successors. He had no intention of allowing any Sith to replace him, believing himself to be the pinnacle of Sith evolution. Unlike the secrecy that defined the Sith under the rule of two, Palpatine used the Galactic Empire to openly enforce his will. Through institutions like the Imperial Military, the Inquisitorius, and various dark side acolytes, Palpatine spread Sith ideology indirectly. These operatives were not true Sith, as Palpatine saw no need to train successors or risk empowering rivals. Instead, they were tools to consolidate his rule and extend his influence across the galaxy. Central to the rule of one was Palpatine's pursuit of immortality. Through dark side rituals, cloning, and Sith alchemy, Palpatine sought to transcend death and rule the galaxy indefinitely. This ambition underscored his rejection of the rule of two's cycle of succession. Palpatine envisioned himself as the eternal Sith, eliminating the need for a line of successors. The rule of one manifested through Palpatine's iron grip over the galaxy. Key aspects of its implementation included manipulation of Darth Vader. Palpatine exploited Darth Vader as a tool of fear and domination, using him to enforce the Empire's rule while ensuring he remained subservient. Despite Vader's immense power, Palpatine never intended for him to challenge or replace him. Instead, Vader was deliberately crippled and kept under control, a stark contrast to the rule of two's emphasis on cultivating a powerful apprentice. The Inquisitorius. Palpatine created the Inquisitorius to hunt down surviving Jedi and enforce the Empire's will. While powerful in the dark side, the Inquisitors were not true Sith. This distinction reinforced Palpatine's belief in his unique position as the sole Sith Lord, ensuring no one else could threaten his supremacy. Palpatine's hidden cloning projects were a cornerstone of the rule of one. Through these experiments, Palpatine sought to create bodies that could sustain his essence indefinitely, bypassing the limitations of mortality. His obsession with immortality underscored his belief that he alone should wield the power of the dark side for eternity. The rule of one represented a radical departure from Darth Bane's vision. Where Bane believed in a lineage of Sith growing progressively stronger through the cycle of betrayal, Palpatine saw this process as unnecessary. In his view, he had already achieved ultimate power, rendering the rule of two redundant. This deviation, however, introduced a fundamental flaw in the rule of one: its dependence on Palpatine's immortality. Unlike the rule of two, which ensured the continuation of the Sith through a line of successors, the rule of one was entirely centered on one individual. Palpatine's death would inevitably lead to the collapse of his empire and the end of his doctrine, as there was no mechanism for succession. Palpatine's doctrine ultimately proved unsustainable. His overconfidence in his own invincibility blinded him to the growing threat of rebellion and the redemption of Anakin Skywalker. When Palpatine was killed aboard the second Death Star, the rule of one collapsed, and the Galactic Empire crumbled in his absence. Even Palpatine's attempts to resurrect himself through cloning were fraught with failure, as seen in the Dark Empire series. His clones were unstable, and his efforts to regain control of the galaxy were repeatedly thwarted. This failure underscored the inherent weakness of the rule of one. By concentrating all power in a single individual, it left no contingency for the Sith's survival in the event of that individual's death. The rule of one was Emperor Palpatine's ultimate expression of Sith ambition, embodying the culmination of millennia of Sith philosophy. By centralizing all power within himself, Palpatine sought to create an eternal empire under his absolute rule. However, this doctrine was inherently flawed, as it relied entirely on one individual's immortality and infallibility. While the rule of one marked the zenith of Sith power in the galaxy, it also sowed the seeds of its own destruction. Palpatine's overconfidence and inability to prepare for his own mortality ensured that his death would bring an end to his vision, leaving behind a shattered empire and a galaxy ready to rebuild in the absence of Sith tyranny. In this way, the rule of one stands as both a testament to Palpatine's genius and the ultimate failure of his hubris.